Welcome to Lotus Lane Daily. I'm glad you're here. Today's wisdom is for anyone going through something hard. You know that feeling when you look at the person across the dinner table and realize you have nothing to say? Not because you are angry, not because anything is wrong exactly, just because somewhere in the last few years the conversation ran out and now you eat in a silence that used to be comfortable and now feels like a room with the air slowly leaving it. You remember when you could talk for hours. You remember when they were the first person you wanted to tell things to. And now you tell other people first, or you do not tell anyone, and you go to bed beside a person who feels less like a partner and more like a roommate you happen to have a history with. This is drifting. It is one of the quietest, loneliest things that can happen to two people who once chose each other on purpose. How two people drift without meaning to. Nobody decides to drift. There is no fight that causes it, no betrayal, no single bad day. That is what makes it so confusing and so hard to talk about. If your partner had done something wrong, you would at least have a story. Drifting gives you no story. It just gives you distance and a vague sense that you cannot quite remember when you last felt close. Drifting happens because life gets loud. Jobs get demanding. Children arrive and absorb everything. Bills, aging parents, health scares, the sheer logistics of keeping a household running, all of it crowds in, and the relationship gets handled last because it is the one thing that does not scream when it is neglected. A child cries, a boss emails, a marriage just goes quiet. So you tend to everything that demands attention, and the two of you slowly become the lowest priority in your own lives. And here is the part that catches people off guard. You can do everything else right. You can be a good parent, a hard worker, a responsible adult, and still wake up one day next to someone who feels far away. Drifting is not a failure of love, it is a failure of attention. And attention, unlike love, has to be a choice you keep making. What drifting actually costs you. When you drift, you do not just lose conversation. You lose the feeling of being on the same team. Slowly, without noticing, you stop thinking of your problems as our problems and start carrying them alone. You stop sharing the small things. The funny thing a coworker said, the worry that has been sitting in your stomach. And once you stop sharing the small things, the big things have nowhere to land either. You also start to rewrite the past. When you feel distant now, your mind quietly tells you it was always like this, that you were never really that close, that maybe you settled. That is almost never true. It is just the present painting over the memory. The closeness was real. It has not been destroyed. It has been left untended, and untended things go quiet, but quiet is not the same as dead. The wisdom of slow erosion. There is a line from an old collection of writings on persistence that has nothing to do with marriage and everything to do with it. A river does not carve through rock because of its power, but because of its persistence. It is usually read as encouragement, but it cuts the other way too. Distance carves through a relationship the same way. Not through power, not through one big blow, but through the persistence of small daily neglect. 1,000 evenings of half attention. 1,000 conversations that never went below the surface. The good news inside that hard truth is this. If small persistent neglect is what carved the distance, then small persistent attention is what closes it. You did not drift apart in a day, so do not expect to come back in a day. But you can come back the same way you left, one small moment at a time, except now you are paying attention on purpose. How to find your way back to each other. Name it gently, without blame. Drifting has no villain, so do not invent one. Try saying something like, I feel like we've gotten far apart and I miss you. I don't want us to just be people who run a house together. Can we work on us? Said without accusation, that sentence usually meets relief, not defensiveness, because there is a good chance they have felt it too. Become curious about them again. You stopped asking questions because you assumed you already knew the answers. You do not. The person you married has changed. Ask them what they have been thinking about, what they want the next few years to look like, what they are quietly afraid of. Listen like you are meeting someone interesting, because in a real sense you are. Rebuild a shared routine. Couples who stay close almost always have small repeated rituals. A walk after dinner, coffee before the house wakes up, a real conversation on a particular night each week. These rituals are not romantic in a movie sense. They are the scaffolding that holds attention in place when life tries to crowd it out. Pick one. Protect it. Do one new thing together. Drifting partners often only ever do the old, automatic things. Novelty wakes a relationship up. It does not need to be grand. A class, a trip somewhere small, a project, a place neither of you has been. Shared new experience gives you something to talk about that is not logistics. And it reminds your nervous system that this person is a source of life, not just a source of chores. Catch the small good moments and say them out loud. When your partner does something kind, name it. When you feel a flicker of the old closeness, tell them in the moment. There is wisdom in the old idea that small daily actions compound into great achievements over time. Reconnection is built out of small, acknowledged moments, stacked up patiently, until one day you notice the silence at dinner is gone. If you are both willing, you are not too late. Here is the honest part. Some couples drift so far that one or both of them genuinely stop wanting to come back, and that is a different and harder situation. But most people who search for this at 2 a.m. are not in that place. Most people who search for this still want their partner. They just do not know if the wanting is mutual, and they are scared to ask. Ask anyway. The distance between you is often thinner than it feels, made mostly of two people who both went quiet and both assumed the other had stopped caring. The moment one of you reaches across it honestly, you frequently find the other was standing right there, hoping you would. You found each other once, in a world full of people, and chose each other on purpose. That choosing did not disappear. It just needs to be made again, not in one grand gesture, but in the small, steady attention of two people deciding to turn back toward each other. Start with one honest conversation. The rest can follow from there. That's the wisdom for today. If something here landed for you, share it with one person who might need to hear it too. Take it slow. I'll see you tomorrow on Lotus Lane Daily.